Okay guys, so the next sculpture is the Inukshuk, and I'll be presenting that. My name is Susie. We would have liked to have had a representative from a First Nation be here to present today, but we weren't able to make that alliance just yet. In future events we intend to. I have a master's degree in Indigenous politics from the University of Victoria, so I will do my best to present from the Native perspective, even though I myself am not an Indigenous person. Okay, so on the site about the sculptures it says, the word Inukshuk means in the image of man and represents safety and nourishment, trust and reassurance. The Inukshuk guided Inuit peoples across the frozen tundra and gave them hope and barren places to handle hardships they encountered. Although the Inukshuk, now this is mine, although the Inukshuk is a structure used by the Inuit people in the north, it is a very recognizable symbol that has come to represent Canada's ancient roots. There are in fact 630 recognized Indigenous nations in Canada, with history spanning back 35,000 years or longer, as compared to the 200 years that Europeans have called this land Canada. Although there is no such thing as a pan-Indigenous culture, since each nation has a unique tradition and language, there are nonetheless certain qualities that Indigenous cultures around the world share in common. One of the main commonalities is that their cultural identities are shaped by the land that they live on, and as such they live in relationship with the land as sustainer. This type of relationship does not accommodate notions of land ownership. The people do not own the land, rather the people belong to the land. Since the rise of the industrial age and colonial domination, Indigenous peoples have struggled to maintain their ways of life and to foster their traditional environmental wisdom. The dominant paradigm when it comes to natural resources is marked by predatory capitalism and globalization, where something is used up until it's gone without regard for the health of the earth or the fate of future generations. From the Indigenous perspective, this type of resource management is not only disrespectful to the earth, but also foolish for humankind and all living things. Unfortunately, since Indigenous peoples maintain a closer relationship to the earth, they are most vulnerable to climate change. The types of dramatic and unnatural changes happening in the climate have the potential to devastate the ways of life that many peoples have maintained for millennia. And yet, in Canada's history and throughout the planet, Indigenous nations have shown unprecedented resilience in the face of harsh and threatening changes to their ways of life, and are still here coping with the changes and adapting. In the face of something so daunting and encompassing as human-driven climate change, where can we look for ideas for the type of system change that will bring us back into a sustainable relationship with our environment? Where will we place the Inukshuk to mark the path that is safest, the path that will lead us to the kind of world that our children and grandchildren can happily live in? Perhaps Indigenous nations hold this valuable knowledge that can help mitigate climate change and ensure our survival. In closing, I just want to thank the nations of this area, the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, Chippewa, and others, who fished and lived here for centuries before it was called the Detroit River. May we once again learn to share this land and share these resources amongst ourselves and with the future generations. Thank you. And the next sculpture, Patsy.
The train.
The train.
Just
the
right
train with Jim.
I'm going to talk about this train, and although it's not officially part of the sculpture garden, and therefore we don't know the artist, although we think it's the city of Windsor, it does give us an opportunity to raise an important aspect of climate change discussions, that of transportation and more specifically high-speed rail. When I went to Germany and the Netherlands about 7 years ago, I did a lot of traveling on high-speed rail, and I remember noting that the trains were actually made by Bombardier, a Canadian company, and I wondered why we weren't implementing that homegrown technology here in Canada. Sadly, Canada is the only G8 country that does not have high-speed rail. Yet a 2009 survey of Canadians aged 16 and over measured public outlook on and support for developing a high-speed rail system in Canada, and found that 80% of respondents supported introducing high-speed rail in Canada. High-speed rail and transportation issues have also become hot political issues recently. A recent Windsor Star article reported that efforts to build a high-speed rail line in the Windsor-Montreal corridor may gain traction after Michigan secured $200 million from Washington to build a new high-speed rail connection between Detroit and Chicago. And NDP MP Brian Massey of Windsor West was quoted saying that the proposed rail tunnel provides an excellent opportunity to build a full Montreal to Chicago connection one day. The project description for a new $400 million Windsor-Detroit rail tunnel has been filed with Transport Canada, and early phases of an environmental assessment are underway. And Massey said in the meantime, the federal government should back prep work needed for a Windsor to Montreal high-speed network, such as building road-rail grade separations. But what are the advantages of high-speed rail, you might ask? Advocates of high-speed rail tell us that it is a major step toward solving global warming by reducing our oil consumption and emissions. It drastically reduces our oil addiction and lowers our risk from the coming peak oil crisis. It ends wars for oil. It provides freedom from oil as they are powered by clean electricity from renewable energy sources such as wind, solar, geothermal, and ocean and tidal energy. It's a safe, affordable, green transportation for everyone. This all sounds good for a cleaner, greener, moving planet. Thank you, everyone. Nice job, Jane. Very positive. Okay, we've got a bit of a walking gap here, so feel your heart rate, feel your feet as they step on the ground. We're going to move together, and the next sculpture is the businessman on a horse. Impossible to miss.